Call the member for Bennelong.
I move the motion relating to Australia's visa system in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The community I represent is a mosaic of cultures, backgrounds and stories. It's a community that reflects what makes Australia great. It's full of diversity and displays a distinct Australian multiculturalism. Deputy Speaker, every street in my electorate has benefited from the contributions of migrants who chose Bennelong and Australia as their home. In this dynamic and multicultural community, our nation's migration system reverberates far beyond the discussions in this chamber and the words written in legislation and regulation. Our migration system changes lives. It impacts my neighbours, our friends and our family members. 66% of my electorate have one or both parents born overseas. Migration matters to modern Australia. And we know that a broken migration system impacts on electorates like mine the most. Deputy Speaker, the revelations uncovered by the Nixon Review into migration are confronting as they are infuriating. Our migration system should never operate like it did ever again. The rapid review into the exploitation of Australia's visa system paints a stark picture of a broken immigration system, a system that was left to rot by the Leader of the Opposition in his role as former Minister for Home Affairs. The review revealed a deeply flawed system that allowed criminal gangs from around the world to exploit vulnerabilities in the system for their benefit, tragically at the expense of genuine migrants who would have otherwise reunited with their families or filled much-needed skill shortages. When Labor came to government, there were nearly 1 million visas waiting to be processed. The department had been deliberately neglected, understaffed and ignored. Nearly 1 million visitors, students and skilled workers that were left in limbo, waiting for the word that they will be reunited with their families. Families left apart, businesses short of skilled workers, humanitarian visas piling up. This was a byproduct of the neglect of the Leader of the Opposition. Instead, under his administration, the system wasn't geared for the people. It was geared for criminals. And as the report identified, criminals exposed grotesque abuses of our migration system. Grotesque, Deputy Speaker. The gravity of this situation cannot be overstated. We had a system that allowed rings of women to be caught in sexual slavery within our own country. A system that essentially designated migrant worker exploitation as a feature rather than a flaw, and a system that turned a blind eye to the systemic breakdown of immigration compliance and genuine visa processing. And all of this occurred under the Leader of the Opposition watch, when he was then Minister for Home Affairs. The member for Dixon stood up in this place for the last decade, beating his chest about being tough on borders. He'd then go on talkback radio and portray himself as a border patrol cop on the beat, a tough guy on immigration, boasting that he was keeping Australia safe from illegal arrivals. Yet now we know that all he did was oversee a system that was falling apart. Under his watch, there was nearly a 50% reduction in the number of compliance officers in the 9 years to 2022-23. Under his watch, criminals were left to abuse Australia's visa system. Under his watch, criminals exploited the most vulnerable. And a migration system was used to facilitating some of the worst crimes in our society against those who needed our support and protection the most. Yet, unlike him, Deputy Speaker, the Minister and the government will not turn a blind eye to the exploitation and negligence of people. We will not turn a blind eye to genuine people who want to call Australia home. While these problems are systemic and will take time to fix, the government's response to the Nixon Review demonstrates our commitment to cleaning up a mess left by the Leader of the Opposition. Deputy Speaker, Australians deserve a migration system that works for them, one that is fair, one that prioritises skilled migration, one that brings families together. We deserve a migration system that serves our national interests, not the interests of criminals. This review will also enable the government to weed out the cowboys in the migration agent industry, one that is long overdue. I commend the motion to the House.
I thank the member.